going to happen.
I literally worked that into politics yesterday.
Right.
Somebody talking about a Republican challenger in the primary for Trump, and I answered with a withering, "Stop trying to make fetch happen."
Great example of a movie that does hold up. That is funny.
Yeah,
that movie is funny
and really speaks to the unfulfilled promise of Lindsay Lohan.
I'll say
the Lindsay Lohan that is in Mean Girls is like, man, you would have expected her to be a kind of like massive, that was like a star-making performance, and she was already a star, but it was a different kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And now
there were some movies made after that, but by that time it was all marred by
and now she's harassing teens out in Greece for money on television, like,
right.
That's her thing.
All right, it works.
Good. I'm glad.
Here's Tech Live.
Wait, are you trying to date yourself, Tom?
I'm like, there's like where I'm like, we're live. What do I do? Get to the hoteling station.
Where's Michaela?
Oh, the hoteling stations. I love those.
The hoteling station and Lotus Notes.
Good times.
And then
such good times. Such fetch times.
Stop trying to make fetch happen, Tom. Not gonna happen.
Was it
You
New
can't
Star?
live with us.
New Star? We used New Star, right? Trying to remember what a rundown software was.
Oh, it was.
Was it New Star? No.
It used to be called something else, and then it became New Star.
What
was it?
Yeah, what was it before New Star? Because when we had the other one, everybody's like, why aren't we on New Star? Everybody else is on New Star.
Yeah, it was.
It was news in the title, whatever.
Because it was the same. Like I used to use the same software at a local news station in San Francisco, so I was familiar with it. But it was like an older version. It was, news was part of it.
Okay, you guys ready to do some news?
iNews.
iNews. Wait,
All right.
so iNews is what it became.
Yeah, I think we had
News
a
Star
and then what it was. We got iNews because everybody else was on iNews. All right, let's do some TV.
Okay, we will. But one thing, literally just one headline, Tom, because we were talking about it before we went live.
Mm-hmm.
Headline: May gone by June? ?
Wrong.
I know I'm the only one who cares. Yeah,
I mean, I care. I just don't get it.
It's really good.
It's a UK Theresa May. Will she be gone by June?
It's Theresa May.
Oh.
And probably actually. I take my wrong back. All right. Ms. Lane, would you read line 3 today?
Would.
Here we go. In 3, 2.
Baratunde Thurston is a direct supporter of independent tech news. Why not be like Baratunde and become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, May 16th, 2019 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Oakland, California, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
We are definitely going to talk about the executive order and the Commerce Department decision regarding Huawei in the United States. Got lots to say about it, but we need to clear out a few other things first. So let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Speaking of Huawei, Nikkei reports that Samsung and Huawei have agreed to settle a 3-year-old smartphone patent dispute and are reportedly negotiating a larger patent cross-licensing agreement as well. Huawei originally sued Samsung back in May of 2016 for infringing on 4G wireless patents, and before the settlement had over 40 lawsuits going on in various courts.
Wonder why Huawei was motivated to settle.
Valve officially brought its game streaming app Steam Link to the iOS game store with versions for iPhone, iPad, and Apple TV. Games can be played on the same local network as their host PC or Mac and requires pairing a MiFi or Steam controller to the device. The app originally was rejected from the App Store in 2018 for violating guidelines around user-generated content, in-app purchases, and content codes.
Amazon opened pre-orders on an update to the $50 Fire 7 tablets, which now integrate Amazon voice services in standby mode with the screen off. Before that, you could do Amazon voice stuff with a software update, but it required the screen to be on or to be plugged in and charging to reply to the wake word. Now the tablet can just do it whenever you talk to it. Comes with a quad-core 1.3 gigahertz processor, faster instructions per clock than the outgoing model, and comes in 16 and 32 gigabyte storage capacities while offering expandable storage through micro SD. The new Fire 7 ships June 6th.
Instagram is notifying users of its standalone messaging app Direct that the app will shut down in the coming months. All conversations will be moved to the messaging in the Instagram app. The Direct feature development will continue as part of that experience. The app was originally rolled out in December of 2017 to Uruguay, Chile, Turkey, Italy, Portugal, and Israel as a test.
All right, let's talk a little more about an unlikely partnership, Justin.
Microsoft and Sony announced a partnership Thursday. Sony will use Microsoft Azure to stream games and media and offer game makers new development tools. Microsoft will also help Sony to develop new image sensors using Microsoft AI.
So, I mean, I guess what Sony gets better streaming and download for its video game streaming services, as well as things like PlayStation View and whatnot, will be better for that. And that is something Sony has taken some criticism for here and there. Microsoft gets some image sensors to play around with and develop their AI on and provide to their enterprise customers. So it's a little bit of an everybody wins the way they want to present it here, but it does make you wonder if this whole Microsoft, Sony, Xbox versus PlayStation 4, no, we're not going to be cross-platform. Well, we'd like you to be, is going to have some resolution now that they're talking here.
Microsoft is, I mean, this has been a Microsoft thing for some time, not just with Sony, but Microsoft saying like, okay, Cortana, let's make it, let's work with our competitors, or at least direct competitors as they've been in the past, much more than they have in the past.
Yeah,
so,
Microsoft's everybody's friend suddenly. Yeah,
exactly.
Microsoft cares about cloud more than they care about Xbox. That's what this is about. They are in the Azure business. Azure is an explosive market for them. It will only get bigger as more people use it. They want to be with the biggest players. Sony's a major player. That's why this is happening. And any concern about Xbox, I think, is, look, if it happens, it happens. If it benefits them, but I think this is about them making an Azure deal.
I will agree with you 90%. Microsoft cares about Azure more than anything. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Microsoft also makes a lot of money off Xbox. It's one of its brighter points. I don't think they would do anything they thought would undermine it. I don't think they think this undermines it though.
No,
they're like, we're this number 2 to PS4. If we can convince cross-platform to come out of this, that helps us. If we don't, it doesn't hurt us.
Yeah.
Well, and interesting that Sony has been, Sony was not going to do this a couple of years ago. So the fact that Sony is acquiescing in some form is significant as well. Google's director of product and smart home ecosystem for Google Nest, Michelle Turner, wrote Thursday that existing Works with Nest connections will continue to work beyond the August 31st cutoff date until the services migrate to Works with Google Assistant. However, no new integrations will be accepted after August 31st, and once customers migrate Nest accounts to Google accounts, Works with Nest will stop working for them. Google previously mentioned that it's working with Amazon to migrate the Nest skill. Other companies will need to go through security audits and add more granular controls for data and devices. IFT support not mentioned. So we presume it will stop working after August 31st. HomeAway Assist, a key feature of Nest, was confirmed to come to Google Assistant sometime later this year as well.
Boy, can you feel the breeze off of that back pedal? The only question that I have to ask here is, why didn't you make this your message up front? I'm very curious, because this is the right message to say, you know what, Works with Google Assistant has wider acceptability. It fits in our platform more, and we're going to make it more secure, which they did talk about at Google I/O. And that was the good part of this. And so is where they fell wrong at Google I/O. And so everything ends on August 31st was not an acceptable answer to a lot of people, saying we're going to work with most of our partners to make sure there's a transition plan, and we won't stop Works with Nest until they are moved onto Works works with Google Assistant. Much better message to tell people. Unfortunately, a lot of people heard the first message and may not hear this one.
Well,
Sorry,
I was going to say, I mean, do you think that Google just vastly underestimated how many people were inconvenienced by this or downright angry by it? Because, Google's I/O message was like, don't worry, we're just kind of changing the nomenclature, but everything's kind of the same.
Yeah.
People were like, actually, no, not at
Nothing
all.
to do with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
IoT is not regular tech. IoT is not consumer tech. IoT is the infrastructure of your life, and is oftentimes the thing that people get as gifts for people that are less tech savvy than they are. So if there's the possibility that all of a sudden something that they need, like, controlling the temperature of their home, could go wrong at a certain point, that you can't be as cavalier as like, we're stopping we're stopping service for this feature on your smartphone that probably somebody who knows how to use a smartphone has.
I wonder if this wasn't already the plan and they just communicated it improperly because they were like, man, there's not that many Nest users anyway. And that's always a bad thing to do on the internet.
I also think there's no way that Google thinks that there weren't a lot of Nest users. There are a lot of Nest users.
There are not that many, relatively speaking, or they wouldn't be retiring all of this. I mean, the whole reason they moved Nest into Google is because they're like, this is not a sustainable business on its own. So it's a relatively speaking not enough, I guess. Still a lot of people. The danger with Google's Bluetooth Titan security key, which is used for second factor authentication, if you don't know, has always been that Bluetooth could be compromised. A lot of people are like, ooh, but I can use this with a lot more things, right? Well, yes. And Google is trying to stay ahead of Bluetooth vulnerabilities by disclosing a misconfiguration in the Titan security key's Bluetooth pairing protocols. Not an active exploit, something Google determined and is disclosing, okay, we discovered this vulnerability and we're fixing it. To exploit the flaw, an attacker would need to be within 30 feet of the key, so pretty close. And when a user pressed the button on the key to activate it as the second factor on login, if they can connect to the key before you do, and know your username and password. So they have to do all those things. They have to already know your username and password, be within 30 feet of you, and be able to connect their device to your key when you press the button before your device is connected to your key. Then they could log in and access your accounts. There's also a possibility of masquerading as your key and remotely taking over your device's keyboard and mouse. That one seems a little more serious to me, but they've both been fixed, and Google will provide free replacement keys to all users of the Titan Bluetooth keys and any USB NFC key with T1 or T2 in small letters on the back as a result of this.
I mean, you've got to be real heck bent on getting into somebody's information, right? But at the same time, if it's possible, yes, this is something that has to be fixed.
And you can't over-secure security devices.
This is why Yubico didn't want to do Bluetooth keys and don't do Bluetooth keys, even though they're part of the protocol. They've contributed to it. Is be like, but what about this? The fact of the matter is, most people who have these keys probably don't need to trade them in, because the idea that someone's going to try to get within 30 feet of you and do this, unless you're a clandestine person working with confidential information or a high-profile target, it's pretty slim.
Sure, but still. It's a security product.
Mm-hmm.
So, no matter how small that exhaust port is, it can still blow up the Death Star.
Happy Flaw Week, everyone. It's been a wild ride.
The question is whether you're the Death Star or not.
Sure.
If you're the Death Star, it doesn't end well for you.
No, twice.
Spoiler. Let's talk about phone numbers. Okay. Japan's communication ministry announced a plan to create 10 billion 14-digit phone numbers for assignment, stating that traditional 11-digit numbers are expected to run out as early as fiscal 2022. The numbers would start with the code 020 and arrive no later than the end of 2021, with the majority carriers NTT Docomo, KDDI, and SoftBank on board. The plan is currently open to public comment. If public has an issue with it, they have a right to say so. And the ministry will create a formal report on the matter over the summer, with necessary preparation to be completed by the end of this year, actually.
Pretty crazy to think there's that many phone numbers in use, but one of the things they mentioned in this Japan Times article is Internet of Things devices each being assigned a phone number. I assume there's a lot of Internet of Things devices in Japan that have telephone or cellular access that get their own phone number assigned. which would make you run out of phone numbers faster. So adding an area code, basically 020, gives you doubles your number of phone numbers immediately, and gives you room to improve. Because if you get people used to 14-digit numbers now, well, 020 for now, and then eventually it could be 021 and then 022, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, my first reaction was like 14 digits. But, we always talk about our phone numbers being 9 digits. But yes, there's an area code associated with my cell phone number. So that's 12. So it's not that crazy. But it is, it's kind of funny to think of, Japan is, for a relatively small country geographically, so many people there. And the fact that it's like, you know what, we're running out. And, we got to kick this up to 14. Good on them.
The other question is exactly how important will phone numbers be by 2022? And even if you're using them, because the fact that these are getting, that every lamp that gets bought that you're putting on a cellular data plan gets issued a phone number seems like a relic of a bygone era. You almost wonder whether or not that's something that will be rectified in the next few years.
But it's like we were also saying this 5 years ago. How long will people still have phone numbers? But I mean, I could just not have a phone, or not have a phone number and use, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, or, any of the other options to communicate with everybody, but I'm not.
I mean, I don't know my wife's phone number. My wife is my wife's name, and I press her name.
But she has one, and it is essential to her phone's identity.
Yeah,
and
you've just created a
SMS
shortcut to make it easier for you.
I'm saying that a lot of people have, and if the technology wraps around our habits, as it oft does, then these become less and less important.
How long will we need IP addresses, though? I mean, why do IPv6?
Well, no, but again, IP addresses are something that are a little bit, more robust than what phone numbers are. But
I don't know. I think phone numbers are kind of being used like IP addresses, but yeah,
they are.
It's an interesting question. It's a very interesting question. Scientists at the University of Maryland published a paper in the journal Science Robotics describing a way of combining perception and motor commands in robots to let them move better and adapt to situations faster. In other words, move more like humans do, a little bit less jerky, a little more fluid. Right now, one of the reasons that they move the way they do is that a robot's sensors sense what's going on, then communicate that to a central system, which then passes that down to the actuators to do the movement. It's a 3-part step. That's slow and clunky. The solution to this is to integrate all 3 parts into one system. And the theory from the Maryland researchers in this paper would base a robot's operating system on something called hyperdimensional binary vectors, or HBVs. Now, there's a lot of computer science behind that we're not going to try to explain, but you can read the paper. It's out there if you would like. This system allows the development of history and something like memory and learning in the robot's platform. Beyond just robots, it could also provide a faster, more efficient model for AI versus neural nets and deep learning methods used now, which require extensive training and don't create any kind of memory. Remember, you create a model based on training of a bunch of data, but then the model just runs. The model doesn't remember what it did. It doesn't remember anything. HBV kind of incorporates input into a sequence and keeps a history and has a kind of memory. So it's not only a way to make robots move better, but it could also be a revolution in machine learning that is more adaptable and more efficient than neural nets or deep learning that we use right now. The reason we're telling you all this is so that you can keep these things in mind. Okay, HBV. I'm going to keep an eye out and see if this turns into anything. The researchers also use dynamic vision sensors, sometimes called silicon retinas, to capture changes in light rather than vision sensors that capture scenes. This is better for sensing motion as well.
Holy bear values.
Yeah, HBV, right? However you need to remember that.
Whatever you need.
Hyperdimensional binary vectors is pretty, I don't know. I kind of love that.
It sounds like technobabble.
It's
right.
It either sounds like technobabble or high level math. Those are both often sound the same. Yeah. Exactly. And in this case, it's high level math.
I'm just saying that if there was a syndicated science fiction show in the 90s and someone said, get the hyperdimensional binary vectors, we're gonna blow.
Reverse the polarity on the hyperdimensional binary vectors.
Exactly.
Yeah. Folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. All right, let's get to the Huawei stuff. U.S. President Trump issued an executive order Wednesday declaring a national emergency and prohibiting U.S. companies from using equipment from foreign telecoms if they're believed to pose a national security risk. It does not name companies, but everybody knows that this is pointed at Huawei. It gives the Secretary of Commerce the power to, quote, prohibit transactions posing an unacceptable risk to the national security when those transactions are with, quote, persons owned by, controlled by, or subject to the jurisdiction or direction of a foreign adversary. And of course, the accusation with Huawei that Huawei denies is that it is directly connected to the Communist Party in China, that it takes orders from the government. The department has 150 days to develop its enforcement policy and name the companies it will target. So this isn't happening overnight, but within 150 days, one can expect that Huawei, maybe even ZTE still, although they did make peace with the U.S., could just be Huawei. Huawei will be named, and then companies in the United States would be prohibited from buying anything from Huawei and incorporating it into their networks. Now, there's another thing that sometimes is getting confused here. A separate U.S. Commerce Department Bureau of Industry and Security announcement is that it will add Huawei, and here Huawei is named. It will add Huawei and 70 of its affiliates to what is called the Entity List. That, once it takes effect, would ban Huawei from acquiring technology from the United States without approval. The ban would take effect in a few days, so it's not in effect now, but if the Commerce Department is as good as its announcement, it will take effect in a couple of days. And if you're like, this sounds familiar, ZTE was previously put on this list and shut down operations. Remember, ZTE just closed its plants until it was able to negotiate its removal and resume purchases. Huawei, in response, said restricting Huawei from doing business in the United States will not make the United States more secure or stronger. It also said it is, quote, ready and willing to engage with the U.S. government and come up with effective measures to ensure product security. Huawei also announced it's going to challenge the decision. It could file a lawsuit. It could go to the international trades organizations, et cetera. And Huawei chairman Liang Hua said Tuesday the company is willing to sign no spy agreements with governments. This was before any of this happened, but floated that possibility out there. Whether that would be acceptable or not is an entirely different thing. Now, once this takes effect, what are the potential effects of it? Well, could put Huawei out of business, as we saw with ZTE. Huawei has been stockpiling some components, anywhere from 6 to 24 months, depending on the components. So they bought themselves a little bit of time, but an extended ban like this would threaten Huawei's business. Would affect non-U.S. companies if Huawei stops building devices that sourced parts from them. If Huawei's like, well, we can't build these routers, we can't build these switches because we can't get the parts from Qualcomm, we can't get the parts from Flex, so therefore we can't also buy the parts that go in them from European companies because we can't build them, right? It could have knock-on effects. It would remove $11 billion in business to U.S. companies like Flex, which used to be called Flextronics, Broadcom, Qualcomm, Seagate, and Micron. And a couple other things. The Competitive Carriers Association, which is a conglomeration of the Rural Broadband Association, NTCA, the Computer and Communications Industry Association, and the Broadband Providers Association, ITTA, in a joint statement said that ISPs in the United States would have to spend millions of dollars, in some cases more than $100 million, on just the immediate costs of ripping up and replacing equipment because they've started to buy switches from Huawei. Chinese retaliation, of course, could affect companies like Apple and Lenovo. That's all suspicion right now. We don't know if China would retaliate, and if they do, in what way. They say they will. But Justin, man, this is a serious move. This is not a calm move. This isn't a like, well, we don't know what kind of effect it will have. This is the nuclear option.
Yes. I would say it is the nuclear option in that it is severe. It is not the nuclear option in that it was not telegraphed. If anything, there are two vectors to this, and I'll start with the security one first. The United States has been very clear that Huawei cannot be the backbone of not only the nation's 5G, but any allied nation that we deal with outside of our own borders. They cannot be the 5G backbone. They have made this very clear. They've said that down to the idea of the Pentagon saying that they would consider moving bases and having it affect the aid that goes to certain countries if they did take 5G backbone from Huawei. This is them putting their money where their mouth is and saying, no, this is how serious we are. Now we are making this national emergency declaration. The other side of this is the fact that we are currently in an escalating and deepening trade war with China. And while I do think there is a separation between, there are security hawks that would have been pounding the table about Huawei, whether or not we had President Clinton or President Trump. I do think that President Trump's trade war right now is what makes this a little bit more poignant. And it does make you wonder, is this coming down the pike now because China, according to reporting, backed out on certain key elements of what would have been a landmark trade deal, and now more tariffs have been slapped on both sides and things look to be getting worse? And if that's the case, well, you can't take off some of the weird possible versions of where this can go, like Apple being affected, like Lenovo being affected, like so much of the current American economy that relies on Chinese manufacturing, including lowly game manufacturers like your boy Justin Robert Young here, who makes his games out in China. This is all on the table. We don't know where this goes. Yes, it is outlandish. Yes, it would be unlikely. But we're in the deep end now when it comes to this trade war, and we have no idea where this bottle rocket without a stem is going to land.
Yeah, this is flipping the table in a lot of ways. It's not flipping the only table, but remember, we flipped a smaller table with ZTE earlier, and we saw what happened when we did that. ZTE came to the table and said, "I would like to put this table back up and let's bargain on it," and they did. I think that is probably one of the hopes here, is that there could be a settlement out of Huawei. When you're thinking of the way the trade war has been prosecuted and what the economic interests of the United States have been, that seems to be what you would expect here is, well, let's hard bargain. Let's force Huawei to come to terms with us, stop intellectual property theft, maybe force Xi Jinping's hand in the trade war, maybe not. But we can certainly put a lot of pressure here because this is disruptive, not just to Huawei, but to the entire supply chain of the technology industry. So there's a lot of people who will want this to get solved. But then you bring in that Secretary Pompeo side of this, which is we don't ever want to deal with Huawei.
No,
we think we think they're a security risk, and there is nothing we would accept from Huawei other than them going out of business, which concerns me quite a bit because of the side effects that will have on the rest of this industry. And I don't know how you get out of that scenario if that's what plays out.
Well, and everything that we just laid out with what Huawei is saying, like, we'll sign any anti-spy agreement you want. Like, we'll sign it. Like, okay, got it. You're not bluffing. What could Huawei do differently to more positively affect the outcome for the company?
If you are talking about the elements of the State Department and the Pentagon that are hard-edged, you can't do this. That's where I suspect that we got these rumors of a nationalized 5G network, that would be part of the answers, that the government would fund, some of these alternatives. The only good Huawei is a dead Huawei. They don't care. They don't care about the tech supply chain. They care about what they view to be a critical, irreversible vulnerability that would cripple secure communication in the United States, in their mind.
And, it isn't lost on me that a Dutch newspaper, De Volkskrant, cited unidentified intelligence sources alleging an unspecified backdoor from Huawei in an unidentified Dutch telecom today. That story doesn't drop by accident today, I don't think. Also, the U.S. House Intelligence Committee launching a deep dive examining China's use of technology for surveillance, influence, and political control domestically and internationally. It's Democratic Representative Adam Schiff, and Republican Representative Devin Nunes, both doing that together. So,
and they for politicos, those two don't agree on much.
Yeah. So this is a very interesting thing, and I can't tell you where it's going. I don't think anybody can tell you where it's going. And this will have wide-ranging effects on you at some point, depending on how fast. Yeah, I guess if they resolve it in the next couple of days, which I don't see happening, it might not.
Yeah, I think that this gets loose. The dogs of war were loosed. It might have been the wheels, might have been greased a little by the trade war, but this was a long-standing want from very important people inside the government. And I don't think that Huawei comes back from this. Maybe another, Huawei rebrands and there's a different Chinese telecom that takes over. But that company, as far as it comes to dealing with the United States, that ship has sailed.
You know who doesn't need to be rebranded? Everyone who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. If you hang out on Facebook, we've got a group, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow.
Let's check out the mailbag.
Let's do it. Mike actually wrote in about a Good Day Internet conversation we were having yesterday, but I thought it was some interesting info that some of you might get something out of. Mike says, I was listening to GDI when you were talking about phone plans. Mike was hearing me talk about my Verizon plan and unlimited data and what my options are going forward. Mike says, for those of you that don't use a lot of data, have you tried looking at TracFone? That's TRACFONE, and evaluating the differences. I don't use much data, so I'm on a plan that cost me $120 per year. The only time I needed a lot of data was right after Hurricane Michael. I live just north of Panama City, Florida, in the path and still recovering. I had not heard of this before.
I've heard of TracFone, before, but it's nice to get a little on-the-ground reporting about it.
Absolutely, yeah. $120 per year?
Have you never watched The Wire?
I mean, yes, not recently.
Yeah, there was the whole TracFone thing. I mean, TracFone is kind of the original burner phone. Like that was their branding initially, was one-time use phones. But they have been
I don't remember that being dropped in the show, but maybe I wasn't paying enough attention.
Yeah, I think season 3, maybe it's season 3
Something like that. Yeah,
factors in heavily the man who's going out to buy all the TracFones. But yeah, no, I think that legitimately, I mean, I think it's kind of a smear to just say, hey, the preferred phone of drug dealers. But that they have certainly pioneered the way in terms of buy as you go data.
Well, it sounds like in Mike's case, he's saved quite a bit of money.
Yeah, I feel like Walmart is involved with them, whether it's just stocking or a partial owner or something like that, and sort of help make them a little more legitimate, I think. Well,
thanks, Mike, for reminding us about burner phones and how to use them legitimately. And also thanks to Justin Robert Young for being with us this fine Thursday. Justin, where can people keep up with your work?
Well, folks, you want to know what? It's been a while since I plugged the show itself. Politics, PX3 for short. And it's a fine show. I very much enjoyed doing it, but I'm leaving tomorrow for vacation for 2 weeks. I'm going to be out of the country. I'm not going to do politics. And yet it will get into your ears because I have a guest host and I am very pleased to announce him to you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, for the next 2 weeks, making his political punditry debut, it is Tom Merritt.
Thank you, Justin. It is with humble sense of the importance of this role that I accept it, and I will do my best to fill in over the next 2 weeks.
Are you excited?
I'm really excited, actually. Yeah, I was walking around listening to today's episode while imagining, like, okay, what would I do when I'm sitting in that seat next week? So yeah, I'm super excited about this. Thanks for letting me do that.
Oh man, I am thrilled to see somebody else kind of take what has been a very personal project and take it in whatever direction you want. I'm pumped to have something to listen to on my vacation. But I would encourage all the Daily Tech News Show listeners to go ahead and subscribe, so you make sure that you get Tom's debut on PX3 next week and the week after that.
And don't forget, folks, our goal each month is to get one more patron than last month, and we're doing good. We can do better, though. Join the club. You get all kinds of things like Good Day Internet. You hear us talk about it all the time now. We've been having some amazing conversations, people emailing in. It's about a wider range of topics, but it's still us talking about the things we're interested in. So you can get that. You can get special episodes, special interviews, and all that comes at patreon.com/DTNS.
We've got an email address. That email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live Monday through Friday. If you can join us live, we'd love to have you. 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC, and find out more, dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with Aunt Pruitt and talking about Adobe interactive learning with Lightroom. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Good show.
Good show, internet.
Yeah, I'm gonna get political.
PX3.
Headline coming out of Cannes: standing ovation for the Elton John biopic Rocket Man.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I'm seeing that on Saturday in a like preview. You know, Fandango does these things where they'll sell limited tickets in a week ahead.
Yeah.
And yeah, seeing that Saturday, so I'm very curious.
Will you be
Very curious.
clad in your electric boots and mohair suits?
I read it in a magazine. Yeah.
I'm so glad I got to see him live. I saw him on his farewell tour, and I'm very, very glad that I did, because he is, you know, he's still kind of, he has the voice. Really, the only thing that he doesn't have in his vocal arsenal is the high notes.
Yeah, that's always the thing that goes when you get older.
But he's so much of his stuff. It's just like, it's a few like peaks, but his backup singers kind of fill in for it. So
yeah, the really long-term thinking artists, when they're in their teens, you know, they write all their stuff without high notes. If you
low register.
Planning for that age tour.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is I got a box set of 4 performances of Sinatra at the Sands. Right, so it was like a couple in the 60s, one in the 70s, and one in the 80s when he's older. And it's one of my favorite live music albums is the one of him in the 80s, because you see how he covers for all the notes he can't hit. And what he does is he makes jokes. He'll like do another lyric that was supposed to go there, or he'll like intentionally screw up the note to like make a joke or something. But it's just a master class on like, how do you, like, that man knew his act so well that he planned for the things that he couldn't do and made them special.
That's great. By the way, NVIDIA reporting better than expected quarterly profit, forecasting Q2 revenue above estimates. So all the worries about NVIDIA can go away now. Everything's fine.
Yeah. Get out.
Fine. Till next quarter.
Hey, let's look at some titles. High Level Technobabble. That's from Old Guy in the Discord. Are You the Death Star? New mode of communication. Who dis? That's always good. Happy Flaw Week. Let's see. Any which way but Huawei. Will Huawei go away? Let's see. Trying to find Huawei to the blacklist. Let's see. Here's Tech Live. That's a DDI one. A Huawei home to China. I almost like just no Huawei. Like no way.
I like that.
All right.
Or maybe no Huawei?
No Huawei? Yeah, with a question mark?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then for GDI.
Oh, I had it as what did I say? Right, did it say? Stop trying to make fetch to stop trying
to make fetch happen. Yeah. That's good.
That's good.
Keith Richards' photography exhibit opens 1 month before Rolling Stones resume their tour.
Okay.
I just got this press release for some reason.
Okay.
I guess so I can read it right now. There you go. It's very important that I make this
Cool.
breaking news to you. Nolan Peralta next week, folks. Or tomorrow, I should say, not next week. He'll be back next week.
Well, we'll miss you.
He's got the graduation party. Last week was the trampoline. This week's the graduation.
Yep.
The trampoline.
The trials and tribulations of parents. Turns out kids require work.
What?
I know. I was not aware.
RTFM.
Oh. I mean, I'd laugh more about that, but I have a dog that I feel like is,
Yeah.
He's like a 4-year-old trouble child.
I mean, you certainly don't have any recent examples of that.
First of all, those were my avocados. Like, I eat avocados a lot.
You're like most upset. I would be most upset about the headphones. You're a little bit philosophical about the headphones, but you're like, I wanted those.
Well, so here's the thing. So the headphone, see, it kind of still works.
Yeah.
It's broken.
It's not.
He ruined it, but
yeah,
I could
but
probably super glue it together and
not
things could be okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's
The avocados are gone. You're not getting those back.
and just like, what is wrong with you, man? Like, you don't want that. You
Apparently,
want your dog? You get plenty of food. Little crap. I blame it on the rain.
And it rained this morning.
It did. Yeah, it rained hard.
Hard rain.
It's funny too, because my first reaction when I heard it was like, oh, it's rainy, and I love that sound because my windows were open in the bedroom, and then I was like, oh no, the dog has to wear a poncho. Wet dog smell. Life is ruined. Have to take the cat to the vet this morning. This is gonna suck.
Hell of a morning. I took the dogs out for a walk, and as I was walking Ray back, it was like the ominous like shutting down of the sun, because it was still blue sky on the horizon. So it was weird. Like, I'm looking forward and I see blue sky, but above me a cloud was going over the sun, like a huge rain cloud, and fat drops. Not a lot of them, but just like big.
What time was this?
This was around 10:30ish.
Oh, so it wasn't even raining in your neighborhood till then?
Well, no, it rained earlier today.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
But the rain had stopped around 9:30 or 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, the rain's done. I see blue sky. Great. Going out for a walk. And then this one last cloud comes in and just starts throwing golf balls of water, like just big drops, just boom.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I actually stayed dry because there weren't that many of them, but they were huge.
Yeah. When I walked into the vet this morning, it was, puddles and rain, and, it was raining. When I walked out, it took longer than I thought it would take, it was sunny. As if nothing had happened.
Is it still sunny by you?
Yeah.
We'll never talk about this again. Hey, Justin, did you see that they released some music from Aladdin?
I saw. Well, not since I talked about it on Night Attack. I saw. I heard "Never Had a Friend Like Me" on that basketball ad.
Yeah, they've released a whole clip of him singing, of Will Smith singing the song.
I mean, really, the thing that makes me concerned for the quality of that movie is the fact that we have not heard anything of A Whole New World. A Whole New World is really like that's the big. You don't have a movie if you don't nail that musical number, and we've heard precious little of it.
Yeah, which I suppose you could make the argument that someone decided, well, that's what everybody wants to hear. Let's keep that for the theater so people rave about it.
And that's fine. Like initially when I was talking to Brian about it, and I was like, isn't it kind of weird? Like Aladdin, the songs in Aladdin are like really famous. People have like very like deep feelings about those songs. Isn't it kind of odd that we haven't heard them? Everything else looks great, but we haven't heard them. And he's like, oh, exactly your point. Like, come on, save it for the theater. You want to, that's your attraction. You want to go see how they handle these songs. It's like, okay, and I get it, but wouldn't like, as you're like, they're flashing the credits and when the movie's going to be in theaters, you just like have a couple strains of the notes, like kind of fading into the background.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm seeing that on Tuesday, so I'll let you know.
I kind of feel like you would almost want to cast that, especially since they didn't go with big stars aside from Will Smith. Like, I'm sure that they are stars and other things, but it's not like big Hollywood stars starring in Aladdin. You'd almost want to make sure that like they were singers before they were actors, right?
Right. So I don't know. I have some good news and some bad news.
Go.
The bad news, of course, is that Anne Heche and James Tupper ended their 10-year marriage a year ago. But the good news is their Hancock Park adjacent mansion, 4,652 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, is available. It's on the market.
Wow. Okay.
I love the Variety does this. These celebrity property listings.
Man,
$3.95 million. 5 bedrooms. So that's enough for all of us. We could just make this the DTNS house.
Wait, are we all living together now?
Yeah.
Might as well.
Awkward, but sure.
Yeah, but what isn't awkward at this point?
I mean, you have a dog.
Actually,
a cat.
You've got the kids, so we might need more than 5 bedrooms if we're gonna have a studio. I have to see. If
Yeah,
there's
we
any
need
bonus rooms.
maybe like a subterranean.
Whole new world, indeed.
Uh-huh.
Are there any bonus rooms in here? Or is it just the bedrooms?
What's
Kind
up?
of small, really.
It's funny. I'm still thinking about the whole thing that Justin was talking about, Jeremy Renner and him being a
house flipper.
renovator and flipper.
I think about that every time I see him in a movie now.
I thought about him in Endgame when they find him in Endgame.
Yeah, when he's on the farm.
Like, Black Widow with her furrowed brow. Like, we found him again. He flipped a 4-bedroom, 5-bath, 5.5 bath, old ranch style home outside of Rancho Cucamonga.
A whole new world.
Now, the other point, I forget, this might have been on the Bryce Trending Lemon podcast, but we were talking about the Disney remakes, and I said, look, like, Beauty and the Beast was big, but it was the first of their big run, right? Aladdin and Lion King were certainly in the golden age, but I kind of suspect, specifically since Aquaman did like a undersea movie that didn't look ridiculous, that have every character kind of like underwater, they were able to square that circle. The big blockbuster will be when they remake Little Mermaid, because I feel like
Ooh.
Mermaid.
yeah, like emotionally, Little Mermaid might be the most clung to by at least girls, now women, many mothers my age. Like that was the one that spoke to girls the most, because like Aladdin was, kind of boy stuff. Lion King was kind of boy stuff. 2 male protagonists in those movies, but Ariel, man.
Well, I remember when The Little Mermaid came out, and I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I remember I was doing a lot of babysitting because I wasn't like old enough to work a real job yet. So it was like those several years before I turned 16. Big deal. So all the kids wanted to watch Little Mermaid. I mean, I must have seen that movie 100 times.
Oh yeah.
Between the ages of like 12 and 15.
Yeah.
So it is meaningful to me just because I saw it a lot, and it's also a good movie.
Yeah. No, it was huge. It was gigantic. And it has, I would argue, the most interesting villain of all the Disney.
Ursula the Sea Witch.
Ursula the Sea Witch.
Absolutely.
Is the most interesting.
Mhm.
Like,
just give me your voice.
Exactly. Well, because she's big, she's colorful, she was patterned off a drag queen. Like, so she had this edge back then with showing it to a bunch of kids that was like, man, I have no idea what this energy is, but it's compelling and great.
Totally.
I've never seen that movie.
What? How is that possible with 2 daughters even?
I like the
I'm not
last.
saying it's a flawless movie, but it's an enjoyable one.
I'm trying to think the last feature-length Disney picture that I watched that wasn't like a Tron, like
Finding Nemo, also a big one.
That was Pixar, wasn't it? Or was it?
Well, I mean, we're the same genre, right? Same genre.
Finding Nemo, I watched in bits and pieces.
Finding Nemo, I sobbed like I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
Aladdin is weird because it came out in the period of my life where I didn't go see kids movies.
I actually don't even know the Aladdin story.
I didn't see Little Mermaid in the theater. But I saw Aladdin when it came out. For some reason, me and all my drunken Austin friends decided Aladdin was the movie we were going to spend our money to see that week.
Did you enjoy it at the time?
I remember liking it too.
Yeah. Like I honestly I know A Whole New World. I know that song. I know it's from Aladdin, but I don't know the Aladdin story. I don't know what sort of like the protagonist has to like
You don't know,
overcome to
Yeah,
I just don't
right?
know.
The scheming vizier Jafar looking to usurp the Sultan, and next thing you know, tries to harness the power of the lamp. Plan goes awry. Aladdin gets in
Spoilers.
control of it.
I guess I don't need to see the movie now.
Right? Prince Ali. Come on.
Prince Ali.
Yeah, I'm curious to see it. When you saw the trailer, what I really kind of like you realize is that in live action, there's a lot of action stuff in that movie that doesn't play as weird because it's a cartoon. Doesn't play dangerous because it's a cartoon.
Mhm.
So you don't really think
Right. Yeah,
going to get hurt.
you're more limited, quite honestly.
Yeah, so it's like
because
there's
of
a
the live
lot
action.
of him like in the cartoon, like jumping and leaping and parkouring and doing all this stuff that like looks different when a person's doing it because you're like, oh god, this is really a guy
Yeah.
jumping.
Or the producers are like,
building.
that would be too much of a budget.
Yeah.
So he's just gonna walk.
Yeah, exactly.
He's gonna walk with purpose.
I am curious. There's a few lines in specifically the first song in the movie, Arabian Nights, that I don't think hold up to modern scrutiny in terms
Any examples that aren't too
I believe the line is come here to a place where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home.
Oh
yeah, they changed that, didn't they? Because it was
I'm
what one would
that
think.
one won't make it to the theater.
One would think. Yes. Right.
Prince Ali.
Hey, gotta love it. That's just the way we are.
Yeah.
No,
It's
not.
home.
That's not gonna play.
Video folks, thank you for sticking around. We gave you a little extra today. I hope you enjoyed it. Audio folks, stick around. There's more to come.